Well, I'm on the farm today and got the Krone hooked up to the mighty Massey Ferguson 1105. And the reason it's hooked up is because I want to cut some hay and the Massey Ferguson is running again. So let me tell you what I did and how I went about this. So if you saw in a previous video, I was mowing in this field right here around my barn, and the thing started fluttering and it died. And I got it out of the way and towed it up with my International. There's a video on that. And then I started going through it and seeing what I thought was wrong. And the thing I didn't want to do necessarily was just replace parts. I wanted to understand why this thing shut off, and it was fuel related. I kind of knew that because, you know, when you got a 1977 Massey Ferguson, we rule out the electronics unless the headlights aren't working or the maybe the starter motor and alternator are not turning and charging. But computers and things like that, switches and all kinds of stuff that's on new tractors today, we just rule that out due to the age of the tractor. So what we had was a fuel issue, and the reservoirs on the fuel filters were empty. And I didn't realize they were empty because they kind of got a tint to them just from old age and diesel being against them. And so I thought, well, I might as well put some new filters on, but I really wasn't convinced the old ones were bad. There just wasn't, it really wasn't enough hours on them. But I went ahead and changed them. And so then the next thing was using the hand pump and repriming the system. And the hand pump that was on there, it wouldn't pump any fuel. And sometimes when they won't pump fuel, you can bump the engine a little bit, and the way I guess there's a cam, a lobe on the cam or something like that, that may keep you from being able to cycle that trigger. But on that fuel pump, it wasn't happening. So I thought, you know, let me go a little deeper than this. And so this thing's got two fuel tanks on it. There's one right here, and there's one just like it on the other side, and there's a pipe that goes down between, and both fuel tanks have a drain. And so I drained both tanks. I wanted to make sure that, you know, the tanks weren't, in other words, the lift pump wasn't pumping any fuel when I pumped here, but I wanted to make sure there wasn't an obstruction from here back to the tank. And so I drained the tank and checked the where the pickup tube is. There's a screen that fits over it that's part of the drain plug, and it had a little bit of grit on it, but it wasn't bad. Overall, the tank didn't empty out like tons of rust and all kinds of stuff like that. And I cleaned it and put it back on, and filled it up with some diesel, and then let it flush out in buckets. And so I felt like the tank, while it had a little bit of grit in it, like coffee grinds, it wasn't. I didn't think that was the problem. So I put that all back together, and I put fuel in it, and I tried the lift pump, and it still wouldn't pump anything out. So I thought, well, is it possible the tube that goes down, it pulls fuel up like that. There's a tube that goes straight down. Is it possible that tube has gotten rusted and there's an there's a hole in it, maybe a quarter of the way up maybe a quarter of the way up the fuel tank, because when this thing died, it was low on fuel, but it wasn't empty. So I added more fuel, and I probably got a half a tank in there, and I felt like, you know, that would suffice. And I tried to hand pump, and I didn't get any fuel out of the tank. So I took this connection off right here, and I literally sucked fuel up out of the tank, just like doing a siphon on a gas jug or something. I blew it out, and then I sucked gas up, fuel up, and got a mouthful of diesel. But that told me that you know, this line was intact, including this rubber hose right here. It's just a short rubber hose. So once I established that the screen in the tank wasn't clogged, and the line coming up to here wasn't obstructed, and I felt pretty sure I didn't have any air leaks from here back, I put this banjo fitting back on the original pump, and I took this one loose. I think I had it loose, and I cycled the pump, and I couldn't get anything to come out. So at that point I thought, well, what have I got to lose? These lift pumps are not very expensive, although I probably got one of the more expensive ones. I wanted an AGCO fuel pump. I didn't want an Amazon special. And so I got the fuel pump, and I tried to put it on, and the original pump had a flange on it that goes up against the block, probably a 1/4 inch thick. The one that goes up against the block here is much thicker, and I don't know, it's probably at least a 1/2 inch, maybe 5/8. And there were studs in the engine block and not bolts, which I like studs in an engine block versus bolts. But basically the flange on this pump was too thick to get a nut up on that stud and lock it down. And I was like, oh boy, did they give me the wrong pump? So I went on the internet looking around, and basically what I found was everything I saw looked like this pump in terms of that flange back there. So I got the parts catalog, went to AGCO's website and looked up the parts catalog, and I went to the dealer, and the one thing I noticed was originally there were not studs, and they were bolts, and they were like 1 1/4 inch long, I think. And so I'm guessing, I didn't see any markings on the other lift pump, so I'm guessing that, you know, when they put it on, they used studs to overcome. Maybe the 1 1/4 bolts were too long at that point and were bottoming out in the block. And it's a fine thread. So I went to the dealer and I said, I need these bolts, and I wanted another gasket in case I messed up the one that I had on there, and I wanted all new brass washers, compression washers, for these banjo fittings. And so I got those, and I put this on, and it was a little bit of a wrestling match, but I got it. And I put this hose on right here, and then I cycled this pump, and I'm telling you, diesel shot out of that pump. It only took a handful of pumps for that thing to pump fuel from the tank and squirt it out right there. So once I saw that, I knew I was in business from here back. So I put this banjo fitting on with the new crush washers, brass crush washers, and I made my way around to this side of the tractor. And one of the things I did, I replaced there's an O-ring up under here to these filters. Sometimes the O-rings can go bad, and you know, sometimes air leaks is what scuttles the fuel system on these Massey Fergusons like this. I replaced that, and I might have replaced that washer, and I can't remember. And then there was another gasket of some sort here. I can't remember. It might have been a brass crush washer type thing. Anyway, from the parts book, I bought all that stuff to replace that and make sure I had a good seal on these filters. And so with the lift pump, I pumped the filters full. It didn't take but a minute with that cracked, and bled out all the air. And then I moved from here over to the injection pump, and here's a place you take loose, and there's another one over here. This is a 354 Perkins diesel 6-cylinder and with a turbo. And so I cracked this vent and that one, and I pumped the lift pump until I had a stream of diesel coming out of both of them, and then I tightened them back down. And then I went and I cracked 3 of these injector lines. Some people think you ought to, I say some people think, some people say you ought to crack all of them, but I cracked that one and these 2 right here just because they were easy enough to get to. And I wanted to get the air out of the injection lines, and I cranked the engine and it started to fire, and I shut it down, and I came out here and saw diesel dripping out, and so I closed the lines. I cranked it up again. It fired right off, and it just kind of, I won't say knocked a little bit, but it seemed just a tick grumpy for a couple seconds, and then it smoothed right out. And I let it run for a goodly while, and then I revved it up, and I've had it running on and off ever since. I think I'm back in business, but I'm going to run it and see. So Massey Ferguson 1105 back in business here, and what took so long to get this thing going is the dealer, I don't know, I think they had some trouble getting some of these brass fittings and brass washers, and they're just little bits and things like that. And but I wanted it to be right before I cranked it up and put it back into service. So it took about 2 weeks to get what I needed after I got the fuel pump. So but we're only now ready to start cutting some hay again, and I'm going to try to mash the Massey 1105. It's been a great tractor on this farm. I hope it continues to be. And so that's the video, the Massey Ferguson 1105, back in business. And we'll talk to you later.